Welcome. So how are we going to verify identities? Now remember, identities is when we have an equation where both sides are going to be set equal to each other no matter the value of our variable. For instance, if I have, let's say, cosine of theta is equal to 1 over sine, or 1 over secant of theta, no matter what value we have for theta. So when we're looking into verifying identities, what we want to do is we want to work down our equation so that we can say that both sides are going to be set equal to each other. So the way that we could revise this is, well, we know that 1 over secant, that is equal to cosine. So therefore, you can say that both sides of your identity are exactly the same. Therefore, your identity is what we say verified, meaning the left side is equivalent to the right side. So when we're going to be looking into verifying identity, there's a couple tips and tricks that we're going to want to do. In my examples, you're going to see a lot of sometimes very simple ones and then some very crazy expressions on one side of the equation. So what I like to do is, there's kind of like your 5 or 4 steps. I can't remember what we kind of go through, but to help you verify your identities. The first thing is when you're looking to start verifying identity, don't think of, oh, I always have to start on the left, right? Because we read left to right. But always think about this as, should I start on the left or right? But think about where is my operations, or where is usually the most complicated side. That's where a lot of the most simplifying is going to have to be, right? Because if you have all this crazy stuff going on one side of the equation and there's just a cosine on the right side, well, it's going to be much easier to simplify the left side than to try to expand out that cosine. So work on the most complicated side first. Okay? So it's either going to be the left or the right, and it doesn't really matter. Just pick the most complicated side where you can start simplifying it. And not only just simplifying, but applying operations. And we did this in our simplifying trigonometric expressions by applying operations, right? If we have 2 rational fractions, let's try to add them, combine them into a single rational expression. So you want to make sure you combine fractions. Okay? Sometimes always look into combining fractions. A lot of times if you have a denominator but the other side doesn't have a denominator, then try to work it into a monomial denominator, or try to go ahead and work into as far as getting your denominator off the bottom, right? So there's a lot of different steps that you can to go through and work on this. So combine fractions, apply your operations. If it's saying for you to add or subtract, that's a horrible operations. If it's telling you to add or subtract or multiply or divide, apply that operation, right? So apply whatever algebraic operations you want to look through. But a lot of times the ones that mostly get students is getting your denominator by multiplying either by the reciprocal or multiplying by the difference of difference of squares, or the conjugate, I should say, to make sure that you can get rid of it, all right? And also, combine fractions and work to simplify. The next thing is to algebraic, those are the algebraic ones. The next thing is to look into applying our fundamental identities. Now, in this course, I provided that's horrible. I provided you all the identities, the fundamental identities, the Pythagorean identities, the cofunction identities, the even-odd identities, the reciprocal identities, the quotient identities. I think I already said that. But you look for options to apply those identities. I told you, one thing I always say when we're simplifying, whenever you see sine squared, cosine squared, tan squared, or even the reciprocal function squared, always think Pythagorean identities, right? Try to plug them in. See what's going to happen. A lot of times also look for, if you have a lot of like cosecants or tangents, always try to work with them as what would they look like if they were the reciprocal, right? And how is that going to be? How can you relate that? And think about what functions go together in terms of like secant and tangent go really well together for the Pythagorean identities. But secant and cosine go really well as far as the reciprocal identities. And a lot of times you want to see what you can divide out into one. The next step is, if you get stuck, if you, try to work on the most complicated side, you try to apply any algebraic operations or apply anything that's going on to really try to get monomial denominators. All right, and then you even try applying fundamental identities and you're just not getting anywhere. Another great step is to convert to sines and cosines, right? Because all of our trigonometric functions can be rewritten in terms of sines and cosines. So what that does is that kind of simplifies our trigonometric equation or our identity only into two terms. And a lot of times that's going to be a lot easier for us to be able to start dividing terms into one, or being able to see what route we should really be able to take. And the last step, which is one of the most basics, and what I love about verifying identities, is just to try. You're going to try things, you're going to do this whole crazy mess, and you're going to get absolutely nowhere. And it's going to frustrate you. Start a new sheet of paper and start again and try something different, all right? Because what you're going to find out is the more and more you try and you get the problem wrong, or you go in the wrong direction, you're going to find out the better and better ways to keep on solving these problems, and the quicker and quicker you're going to be able to do it. So you're not going to get anywhere unless you just try. So there's some kind of tips and tricks for you guys as far as verifying identities. Again, all we're trying to do is simplify one side and sometimes both sides to therefore we can say that the left side of the equation is equal to the right side, and therefore our identity will be verified. Thanks.